Okay, this is part 2 of my issues with essay number 1 screencast from this first essay that we did on the views of death in Tennyson and Thomas. Just a couple of last minute things that I wanted to point out. The first thing is make sure that you are left aligning the header to the left margin. So I want to pull up that document specs really quick. So you know that on your doc specs in the upper right hand corner, you have your running header, and that should be your last name, and you insert the page number so that it paginates all the way through your essay. That is an issue. I saw some people with just the page number, and then some people just had the name, and so that's another point I was going to go over, but while I'm over here, I'll talk about. The second thing is that your header, which should be right beneath the header box, the first line beneath the header box, should be your name, my name, English 102, and then the day, month, year format. So 21, January, day, month, year. And a lot of people are indenting this for some reason. So you're clicking the tab button so that it moves over to where you would indent the first sentence of a paragraph. And that is not the case. It should be completely left aligned. Okay. So it should be as far over to the left as you can get it. The next thing, I just said that about the running header, is up in the actual header box and includes both your last name and your inserted page number. What happens if you don't stick it up there is that it bumps everything down, and so you are having to insert it yourself. Each time. If you don't have it up in that header box, you're having to stick it on your essay, which is bumping down your text, and it does not do that if you put it in the right place. Okay, next, when you're doing in-text citations in poetry, make sure that you are using line numbers for poetry and page numbers for short stories, plays, and books. So in that first essay that it was poetry, we're using the line numbers that the poem lines, the quotes come from. And then we can't do that really in a short story or a play, or you can, but it just takes a really long time to kind of figure that out. So you're just using the page numbers instead on those larger works like short stories, plays, and books. The works cited goes on its own page. I know we've kind of gotten in the habit with our CTEs of sticking it at the bottom, but when we're doing a true works cited page, it should be the next blank page in your essay. So for example, if you have even if you have a one paragraph on that second page, and that's all that's on there, you should drop all the way down to the next clean page to stick that works cited in. Works cited should be centered at the top, and you should start that at the top of the page. It should not be it should look like this. It should start, you should have your running header at the top, last name, and your page number, and then the works cited should start on the next available line. Your citations themselves are double spaced, but you'll notice there is a single space in between each one of those when you're setting it up. So don't hit the return button twice. So return and then let it drop down to the next line. And then also that hanging indent, which I went over how to do in that screencast on doc specs. And then finally, keep your fonts consistent throughout. So I noticed some people would bold the title. Some people would use italics in the title. The only time that we're using italics is when we are citing a text in the citations. There should never be any fancy fonts. It should always be Times New Roman 12-point font in every single instance. So that goes for your running header, your header at the top, your title, your text in the story, your works cited page. There's no fancy use of fonts there. I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to kind of point out and discuss. But if you have questions about something that I marked on your essay that you want to know more about, I'm happy to help you with that. I've created a couple of screencasts where I'm kind of walking through a kid a question through, like, step by step, like, hey, this is how this looks and this is what this does, I'm always available to do that for you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have some questions about your grading and why I came up with something. I try to give you lots of feedback and comments on there so you don't have a lot of questions. You're like, oh, okay, and then you can just fix it for next time. But it always happens sometimes, like, I'm not as thorough as I need to be. So make sure that you reach out and ask me a question, a burning question that you have before the next essay is due. So next essay is due on March the 3rd or 4th. Hang on, let me look and see what that date is. I run 4 classes at a time, and so I've got all these dates in my head. It's due on March the 3rd, which is next Friday. And so same format. You're going to have 2 poems. You're going to have MLA format. This will be our last thing that we're doing essay-wise in MLA before we kind of switch gears over to APA, which if you had me last semester, we did all that. But it's okay. If you didn't have me last semester, we'll definitely go through all of that together. But that's for a future date and a future conversation. So this will be the last MLA essay. So make sure that you set everything up correctly using that same format that we've done for this last essay and for your CTEs. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say on the next set of poems.